Long ago, in a world crafted from soft clay and vibrant colors, a wonderful story was about to unfold under the bright morning sun. The hills were alive with the sounds of laughter. Every flower and blade of grass felt real enough to touch in this handcrafted clay village. Meet our young friend, a 10-year-old boy with a heart full of energy. He loved to run across the fields, feeling the warm breeze. And here is a happy young girl with braided hair. She was busy picking the most beautiful flowers she could find near the dusty path. Suddenly, the children stopped playing. They saw someone special standing in the distance, surrounded by a large crowd of people listening to his words. It was Jesus. He looked just as they had imagined, with a warm smile and a kindness that seemed to radiate like the morning sun. The children couldn't wait another second. They dropped their games and began to run as fast as their clay feet could carry them. They wanted to hear his stories and feel the peace he brought to everyone. Their faces were glowing with pure, uncontainable excitement. But as they got closer, a group of men stepped forward. These were the disciples, and they looked very serious and quite stern. The disciples held up their hands to stop the children. They thought Jesus was too busy with important matters to spend time with little ones. The children came to a sudden halt. Their excitement turned to confusion. Why were they being kept away from the one person they loved? The disciples told them to be quiet and go back to their play. They believed that Jesus needed to focus on his teaching and healing. But Jesus noticed what was happening. He looked up from the crowd and saw the children being turned away by his own friends. He didn't want them to leave. To Jesus, these children were the most important people in the whole world at that very moment. Jesus stood up and walked toward the disciples. He gently touched their arms and signaled for them to make a path for the children. "Let the little children come to me," Jesus said. His voice was steady and kind, echoing across the beautiful clay fields for everyone to hear. "Do not hinder them," he continued, "for the kingdom of heaven belongs to one such as these." The disciples looked surprised and humbled. The children's faces lit up like the brightest stars. They didn't need to be told twice. They rushed forward into Jesus' welcoming arms. Jesus scooped them up in a big hug. He showed them that no one is ever too small or too unimportant for God's love. The young girl handed him the flower she had picked. Jesus accepted it with a smile, treasuring it as if it were the finest gold. He led them over to a patch of soft, green grass. Everyone watched as the teacher became a friend, sitting right there on the ground. The sun began to move across the sky, turning the morning into a warm and golden afternoon as they all sat together. The children gathered closely around him. Some sat on his lap, and others sat right beside him, leaning in to hear every word. Jesus told them about the beauty of the world and the love that their Father in heaven has for every single one of them. They listened intently, their expressive eyes wide with wonder. For these children, this was a day they would never, ever forget. Even the disciples began to smile as they watched. They realized that they had learned a very important lesson that day too. They learned that to enter the kingdom of God, one must have a heart like a child full of trust, joy, and simple love. The afternoon light grew softer and warmer, bathing the clay hills in a beautiful glow that made everything look magical. Jesus placed his hands on the children's heads and blessed them. It was a moment of deep connection and holy peace. In this small clay village, a big message was shared. No matter who you are never too small for Jesus' love. The children felt safe and cherished. They knew that whenever they felt lonely or afraid, they could remember this beautiful afternoon. As the sun started to dip below the horizon, the sky turned into a canvas of pink, orange, and soft purple clay. It was time for the children to head home, but they left with hearts that were much bigger than when they had arrived. They walked back up the hill, holding hands and talking excitedly about everything they had learned from their new friend. Jesus watched them go, his heart full of joy. He knew that the love he shared with them would grow in their hearts forever. Remember, just like those children in the clay fields, you are always welcome in the arms of Jesus. He is waiting for you to